In this lesson, we'll take a look at lists. So what is a list? Remember we talked about variables such as x is equal to 10, where a variable will only contain one value, which is 10. So if you print this, you print basically 10. A list is a collection of values. Let's say we call this my list. It looks like this. Starts off and ends with a square bracket. I can have values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my list. If I print my list, that's what I'll get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what if I want to be able to print each item on a line by itself? We have to use a for loop. So in a for loop, we can do for, and then we have to iterate between all the different items. Now in a list, each one has an index. So you notice here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the values inside the list. To print them, you'll have to access them by the index. In the list, the index always starts with a 0. Okay, so the value number 1 here is actually at index 0. This is index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. Okay, so let me show you. If I would print my list and I need to specify the index, if I say my list 0, so the index is enclosed inside the square brackets. Okay, so my list of 0 means I need to see the value at index 0, and that would be the value number 1. In the same way, if I say print my list, and I say I want to see what's at position number 5, or number 4 in this case, because I typed 4, and I will get 5, because this starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So at position 4 or index number 4, the value is 5. Now it's a little bit confusing since I use numbers. So let me change this. I'm going to change my list, and this time I'm going to put in characters. So A, B, oops, C, and D. Notice I enclose them in single quotes. I could also enclose them in double quotes if I wanted to. I cannot put A, B, C, or D on its own because those will be treated as variables. I wanted to put in a string, so A, B, C, and D. Now after this, I want to be able to print my list, and I said at index 0. This will display A. The same way again, if I print my list and at position 4 or index 4, that should give me an error. Why is that an error? Because this is at position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3. There is no position 4. That's why I get the list index out of range. So if you want to print all of these, you need to get the length of the list. To get the length of the list, there's a function called len. We can do my list. So if I would print this and say length of my list is, and change this into curly brackets because we're going to treat that as a value. I run that. The length of my list is 4 because there are 4 items. Now, if you want to print all of these in one line on itself, we use the for loop, and we can say for item in my list, simple as that, and we can say print item, and I get A, B, C, D. In this particular format, because it just says for every item in that list, it will print it. So we don't need to get the length. But if you want to use the length function, we can actually do for item in range of the length of my list. If you remember in your lessons for the for loop, the range is basically of how many items. So in this case, len will give you 4. this will be equivalent to saying range in 4. So let's do that. Let me show you how that works. If this is 4, we assume that there are 4 items, and I print item. You see, I don't get my list because I just said range in 4. Okay, so but if I say item and I say my list, oops, and then the item. So my list is the list you want to print. Item is the index, which is coming from here, which is 0 to 4 or 0 to 3. Okay, because there are 4 items. So if I run this now, I get A, B, C, D. But I am assuming I know the length of my list. If I do this as 5, because I assume it's 5, and I run this, notice I'll get the A, B, C, D, but then I'll get an error because it becomes now a value that is beyond the number of items in the list. So to fix that, we can actually do len of my list. That gives us the length of the list, which is 4, and it will not go beyond. But the easiest way, of course, just say for item in my list and just print the item, and you get A, B, C, D. Okay? So that's that's creating your list. Now, what if we want to be able to append to our list? So I'm going to get our list here again, okay, and A, B, C, D. So we have that. Now, notice that they're all letters. The thing with lists, you can store any value inside. I can put in numbers, 1, 2, 3. I can even put floating numbers, 3.14, 5.67. I can add a long string. I can put John Wick again here, John Wick, and close that in double quotes. See? Now, if I print now my list, I get my list and I have all the values there, which is A, B, C, D, plus the numbers, the float, and the string. And if I run using the same function we did earlier, let's place that in here, and I run this, and notice I have A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 3.14, 5.67, and John Wick, because we're accessing each of the items. Now, lists are what we call an ordered uh, type. Ordered means it retains the order of the items. It does not sort it, it doesn't change it. The moment you specify how the items are supposed to be placed there, meaning strings first, numbers next, and then the string, it will remain as is. But once we've created the list, such as this, we have this particular list. What if we want to add to a list? So a while ago, remember, we could print the list and specify a particular index. Let's say if I do index number 5, which one will this give me? Oops. That's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That should give me the number 2. But can I do this? My list, and I say 5, which is that number 2 there. Can I change that to, let's say, uh, a string called not 2? And now if I print my list, I've just replaced that. So you can replace items given a particular index, and you can do that. But can I add to a list? So let's say if I do my list and I say this is at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, can I do 10 and say new item? No, you cannot. Okay? You cannot use or add onto lists in this particular manner. To be able to add to the list, you'll have to use a function called append. So in this case, if we do my list dot append, then inside the append function, you specify the item. it adds it to the end. Remember, you're appending. That means you're adding it to the end. So if I add that in and then I print my list, notice I have my new item at the end. So append allows you to be able to add items inside. What if I want to insert something inside? I can do my list dot insert. If I use the insert function, I need to say where it's going to be inserted. So in this case, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want it at 5. Insert it here. So if I do index 5, and I'll say insert 1. So that should go right smack in the middle here. And let's print my list after we do that. And we inserted at position 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and position 5. So you can do append, which will add to the end of the list. You can do insert to insert within the list. Now we've seen how we can add onto the list. Can we remove items from the list? Now removing items from the list is easy. You don't need to know the index. So let's say I want to remove. So there's a command called remove. I want to remove the not to from my list. So let's see if that works. So I'll put my list after that. Notice I said remove not to. This is the not to. And notice it's no longer there. So you just have to specify which one you want to remove. The other function is called pop. So when you do pop, it'll actually remove the item. So let's say removed item. So this is a variable, and I'm going to say my list dot pop, and I'm going to say print removed item, and I'm going to so that we know which item was removed. And then after that, I will print my list. Which one did it get removed? So if you do pop, it removes the last item. You see how in the list we had new item here at the end? So when we removed it, it says removed item, it removed new item, which was the one in the last portion, and we printed my list. Notice that the new item is no longer there. You could also do remove. Let's say, let me add, before we do remove, in my list, I am going to insert at position 6, and I'll do the same item called insert 1. Let's see, what's position 6? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is right after there. Let's do 7, 8. Let's do 8 so that it goes somewhere in here. So if I do insert 1 and I print my list, notice I have insert 1 here and insert 1 over here. Okay, I wanted to have something in between so that you can determine which one is which. Now, after I did that, I can now say my list and I can remove insert 1. When I remove the value insert 1, it removes the first occurrence. The first occurrence is the one that comes first coming from the left. In this case, it would be this one. So I've inserted insert 1, and you've seen that. Now you've seen, I'm now going to remove the other one. And what's going to happen here, it's going to look like it moved. Notice that this insert 1 disappeared. Let me print my list twice. So we will insert 1, display the list. Okay. You see how we have, oops, it inserted it again. It's because we now have 2 insert lists. So now when we removed it, it removes the first one. Okay. So let's remove this first. Let me comment this out so that we have 2 insert 1s, and now we have this insert 1 there. It removed the first one already here. Okay, so you now have pop that removes the one from the end, and we can remove anywhere in between. So your remove is the opposite of your insert. Now, since we removed the last item, what if we want to remove the first item? So let's print my list here again so that we know what we're dealing with. So we have this. Now, after that, we'll do my list and we'll use the delete command. So to use the delete command, we will do this a different way. We do del, and then we say my list, and then we have to specify the index of what we want to delete. In this case, if we do 0, these we should remove A. Oops, I forgot to print my list. Okay. Now the thing is, I think I already removed it. That's the thing. Okay. Because we removed A, and the in Python remembers, because of this tool, it remembers what has happened. So if I print my list, this is my list. This is my current list. So it starts now with BCD, and then it runs del my list 0. It removes the one at index 0, therefore it removes B. That's why we only now have CD 1, 2, 3. Now, if I do a del and my list, that basically deletes my list completely, because now my list is no longer defined because I just deleted the entire list. Okay, so those are the functions that you could do with your lists. So you now remember that you have to use append, insert, remove, or pop to be able to manage the contents of your list. And lists maintain the order of the items that you've placed inside, and you can mix various data types within the list. Remember, you always have to define your list. To define an empty list, you simply either do my list, and you can do equals list blank. You can do it this way. So if you notice, if I print my list now, this won't give me an error because I've already defined it. The other way of doing it is just placing two empty square brackets with my list, and you can do the same thing. So you can always start this way. So now this is an empty list. I can now say my list dot append and say first item. And then let's do that. Print my list, and that's your first item. Okay, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next lesson.